And 99.99% of Americans are walking around in a daze. If the government says, oh, these were people behind 9/11, yeah, they were behind it. They were probably the people that the government funded to do it. They were probably telling the truth on that. But they picked up a bag of money in order to do it. And they can always do that. Folks, this is one of the things that we're going to have to change. When we gain control of our monetary system, we have no idea how many problems are going to go away. Maggie, I actually think that we're going to return to honest lawyers and honest judges. Do you believe that?
I don't know. That's what I came to talk to you about. I'm trying to decide how to proceed, and what are the odds, and what are our chances of getting, a fair or decent judge or lawyer these days. I don't know.
Wow. Well, I always told people it was at least 100 to 1 against you in this town, and I think I may have been conservative. I think maybe it might be more than that. I know I will give a couple of them credit. I don't have their names, but you can hear their advertisings. Some of them have actually gone to contract work now on the job that they're going to do they say they're going to do for you. I heard it in a divorce situation. And, that's a traumatic situation for everybody involved, especially if there's kids involved and a wife and a husband. Nobody's going to win in that situation. And now an attorney wants you to give him a blank check. Oh, I'm sure there's nothing could go wrong with that. $300 an hour, $400 an hour. Give me that credit card and let's run up some bills. I got a new payment on my Maserati that's due. Folks, they all aren't like that, but you're going to have to search. And I tell you, it's a tough search.
Well.
And where do the judges come from? The most political of the corrupt attorneys become judges. Oh, I'm sure nothing can go wrong there. But that's what you're up against. But one thing I wanted to bring up to you, I was thinking when I was reading through some of your material the other day, and I shared my perception of that with someone. I've always said I won't say anything behind your back that I wouldn't say to your face. And you can ask Clark, because he's the gentleman that I talked to about it. I was so impressed with some of the stuff that you've done. I want you to, whenever possible, I want you to take a look at his material and see if you can make a few suggestions.
Well, thank you.
Clark tries hard, but there's some reason law school takes 3.5 years. Granted, a lot of it probably isn't as important as they try to make it or try to sell it to you that it is, but some of it is, and you're on the right path, young lady. I told him, I said, I've met a lot of paralegals that aren't nearly as informed as you are, and that leads from your above average intelligence. I knew that obviously right away when I ran into you in the law library after. It took me about 10 or 12 seconds of conversation. And that's what I like. I like people that challenge me and that I know that are listening to what I say. And I'm glad you're there, folks. If you're available, you got a contribution to this show. The number to call is 702-983-0711. Now that you're ready to write it down, the number is 702-983-0711. And I'm going to ask Maggie to give a brief description of what she does. I've already told you how smart she is. Now, that's one good indication of that as far as the listening propensity that you should give a person. Not that they're right all the time. You should question everything, me included. That's what got us in this mess, blindly following others. Don't blindly follow anybody. But if you're sure I'm wrong on something, get on that phone and call me up. And that's what you should do with this lady. This lady's got I worked on it, did a little massage therapy on a young lady on the bus and coming in today. Michelle, I don't know if she'll be listening yet. I hope she will in the future. And oh my gosh, she's got everything. She's got this disease and this disease and this disease, and every pressure point I touched on her body. Do you have a digestive problem? Oh yeah, I've got Crohn's or something. I don't even know Crohn, but she knew one, and she knew everything that she had. I have that. No, Michelle, you have a weakened immune system. It's not that complicated, folks. You aren't sick or not feeling well because of lack of drugs. I know that white-coated lunatic may tell you that, but get a differing opinion. And now, to the wake-up call show is Maggie, and she's going to give you a different opinion. So are you prepared, Maggie, to take off?
Yeah, well, we missed you yesterday. I was talking to Clark on the show yesterday about this case, and we were kind of concluding, or at least Clark was heavily concluding, that, yeah, we're having a problem with the lawyers and the judges and the system just kind of being about money. And it is. I mean, the only conversation we seem to have with lawyers is how much, retainer fee and their billable hours, versus looking at your case and the merit of the case. And so, yeah, I had given you my information to look over this case, which I have been discussing all along. What do you think we should do about this, Stephen? Clark and I were discussing, longer term solutions about grassroots organizations that we could start up. But, what do you think? I guess that's what I want your advice of being a retired an attorney. Yeah, Stephen's our retired attorney here in the group, and so we need your professional opinion on what do we do.
We have to be honest. I never took the bar, folks, and there's a lot of people that have asked that. Well, why did you go through law school? Well, folks, I can get to court enough on my own. I'm helping this young lady because I respect her intelligence and I have a good time. She couldn't afford to pay me because it wouldn't make any difference. Unless I was having a good time, I wouldn't do it anyway. Stack money from here to the moon, I don't care. If I'm not having a good time, I'm not going to do it. I've got more than enough to take with me to the next world. And the reason that I never took the bar, because I was afraid I might get hooked into that income stream, which can be taken away from you when you accept a governmental privilege, when you accept a license. One of the first patriotic lawyers that I studied under, he had an attorney on a retainer. George Gordon was his name. I flew back to Missouri and went to a week-long class with him because I was sure that he had a lot to teach me, more probably so than law school, practical application. What he taught me one thing was, folks, your case is over when you say it's over. And for me, my case is over when I win. Once you convince these psychos that your last day here on earth, you'll be filing something on this case to get it back in court or get it before somebody, or you'll be going on the radio or TV, or you'll be doing an interview with a newspaper individual. Cockroaches hate sunlight. You shine that spotlight on a cockroach, where's he go? He scurries for cover. That's the people you're dealing with. As far as what are we going to do, we're going to do our best. And that's all we can do. And you keep in mind that, as I was trying to make reference to in a kind of roundabout way when I was giving you accolades on your ability, this isn't the only case that you'll ever be on.
Oh, I don't intend to do any others.
Did you hear that, folks? Write that down, because I guarantee you that's wrong. You're being prepared for something, and we all are.
Well, it would be reforming the system. This case was an experiment that failed, and we found out that there's some problems here.
It hasn't failed. It's encountered roadblocks.
It's up at the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see what they do with it. Failed through the lower three courts. That's why I'm wondering if I should bother dealing with, in a legal malpractice suit with the lower court. when they're playing games with you because they won't answer a point blank question on how to enforce a subpoena for the malpractice insurance documents.
Well,
Very simple.
I've definitely got an opinion on that. You have to go forward with this malpractice case. Otherwise, the next person this guy takes advantage of and rips off, you're a co-conspirator because you didn't do anything to stop it. It happened to you because it happened to other people and they didn't do anything to stop him.
Well, it's just that the judge is playing games,
The judges protect their
protecting the lawyer.
political contributors.
Well, I need a lawyer. That's the problem. She's making it all about legal. And you're going to help me, Stephen?
I'm not convinced that you have to have that yet. I am convinced it would aid, but not just any attorney will take a case like that.
Well, that's the thing. There's nobody taking legal malpractice cases because none of the attorneys want to sue the other attorneys. It's like, fun, we'll go to the beach, court. No,
Well,
go to the beach, go to the court.
I hope you remember one of the first things I told you when we met. If I ever did get a license, it'd be for one purpose. And that'd be the only cases that I take, is professional malpractice. I'm addicted to fighting tyranny and abuse of people. And these attorneys are getting away with too much. Somebody needs to rein them in, just like the government. Actually, they're following the lead of the government, now that I think that through for a second. And that's a problem, folks. But it's important I'm glad to report that she's in a much better mood today than when last I saw her. She's actually smiling, and that's good. Folks, things are going to happen if you don't understand how or why. And if you're really on the right path, you're going to have people sent into your life that make reference to the things you say. Isn't it kind of weird that I've been telling people for years that if I ever did practice, it would be for professional malpractice cases. And this young lady, what kind of cases does she have? A professional malpractice case. I've never done one. Don't know a lot about it. Know a lot more before it's over, I'm sure. I am encouraging Drew, listening either psychically or actually, we'll be getting in touch with you. That he is the part-time professor. I worked the last 2 years for him. It looked like me, I still had an hourly rate, but I could go, basically I went in San Diego that wanted law clerks, just at other law not. Well, I would like to know that. Law school ABA approval. And one of the requirements that they had on the law school was that the program, such as in kind of a apprenticeship of some kind, and if they were going to give us for doing that and accept money, basically the school didn't have to do anything for it except fill out a paper and give you the credit for the hours. If they were going to do that, they had to make sure that the attorneys were not paying the law clerks. So I'm pretty sure that's why we had so many law firms that were looking for paralegals from my law school. Plus, I think my law school did a very good job. The opportunity was there for you to learn, I think, much better than most of the other law schools I've heard from. It was a smaller law school in Old Town in the San Diego area. It was really personable. Any of the law professors that I had or even knew of, I could get an hour with them, at least 1 hour a week with any of them. All I had to do was schedule an appointment sometime during the week, and I could ask them anything. It didn't have to be law related. It definitely didn't have to be about their class or something that they taught. It could be something totally related to something that didn't have anything to do with law. Relationships or stress or, it could have been anything. And that helped a lot. I made use of that. And a student that didn't make use of it, then they didn't know that it existed, or they didn't recognize the opportunity, the choice. Those psychologists are always big on that. Choices. You make good choices, you're probably happier. But don't get unhappy just because something bad comes into your life, because it's not necessarily bad. It's teaching you something. And that's, I know when my numerologist told me, she said, Stephen, you're an old soul. Well, how are you going to argue with that? I always felt that. I always thought that lives here have to do with something. She says, yeah. She says, if you were to learn all the lessons that are going to be sent into your life this time around, you can go on to the next level. Which sounds good to me. I'm ready to go on to the next level. This one's fun, and it's challenging, but I remember when a caller called in on Alex one time, and we become, unfortunately, a society of knockers, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, this guy isn't doing it perfect. He started 21 years ago with a 1-hour show locally in Austin, Texas, and now he's listened to by over 10 million people worldwide. He has a television network. You can watch his radio show 24 hours a day. He does 23 hours a week. Obviously, he's not doing enough because he hasn't straightened everything out. Well, sure enough, there was a caller on one of his shows. And I am so glad he called in. I wish I could get one of those that shares a aha moment with me. I know you're out there. So when you're ready, I'm ready. 702-983-0711. He called in and he said, Alex, revelations. All this is going to come to pass. You know, you're just spinning your wheels, he says. Alex Jones. Infowars.com/show. You can listen or watch any time of the day or night. And you'll hear some calls. Not all of them will be like this, but all of them will be informative, I promise you. He called in, he says, you're spinning your wheels, revelations. All you got to do is read that. You know what's going to happen. All this is going to come to pass. This New World Order stuff, you know, you enjoy your wife and kids and family and try to keep a low profile and don't make too many enemies. I guess that was probably John, or I don't forgot his name. That was his advice. Well, Alex was coming up to a hard break. That's where you have to go to the commercial. So he could see by the look on the face of the clock that it was coming up in about 20 seconds. And he didn't want to lose this guy, and he knew in 20 seconds he really couldn't get into it very much, what he wanted to talk to him about or ask him. So he said that, you know, if you can, John, hold on. If you can't, I understand. But if you can, I'd really appreciate it. I got a 4-minute break here, but you went right to the front of the line because you're disagreeing with me, and I'd like to talk to you about it, so please hold on. And he went to the break. When he came back, he started with an explanation like I just gave you about this caller that's on hold. And your audience changes on commercials. Luckily at Radio Tribune, we don't have to worry about that yet, but I hate to inform you, you're probably going to have to listen to them eventually. Before we become the top talk radio show in Las Vegas area, you're going to have to listen to a few commercials. And always know that they're on our show because we feel that you need to know that from this particular advertiser. And if you have information that leads you to believe that you need to protect it from this advertiser, we want to hear that too. But we'll always be courteous to you, and we expect the same from you. When John came back from the break after Alex's introduction, he said, John, he says, I noticed, John, I'm not arguing with you. You know, I've listened to your explanation. He said, well, John, why don't you go ahead and give us your plan? And it sounded like that, folks. There was about 8 to 10 seconds of silence. And Alex says, John, don't hang up, don't hang up. And John says, wow, Alex, I didn't know you were going to do that. And he said, Alex told him, he said, John, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just going to be guided by whatever I felt was right. And I was actually hoping that you said, well, Alex, here's my plan. And I was hoping you were going to tell me, hey, John, that's a great plan. I'll be involved with that. What do I need to, how do I need to help you? You know, to bring it about. I like that plan. But John, if you told me, look, Alex, I'm going to complete this call, and I'm going to go out to the garage and get the shovel out of the garage and go into the backyard and dig a hole and get in right now? He said, Alex told him, he said, John, I don't think too much of that plan. I don't think I want to subscribe to that. We got to try. And then Alex finished with the most important thing that I've ever heard on the show. Because he said, maybe in this world, maybe we aren't supposed to win, folks. There are situations where it's stacked against us. And it's a test. Will you participate? Will you do your best? Always. No matter what. Maybe that's what God cares about. And Maggie, that's my suggestion to you. Are you going to keep trying?
Well, we don't want to beat our head up against the wall if there's, a situation that's not going to, ever give. So I'm wondering if I
ever give? What's ever give?
Well, we're not getting any results, so there's no point.
Oh, we haven't found the key yet. We need the key maker. Did you see Matrix?
Well, I may need somebody, a lawyer to do. By the way, yeah, if you want to call in and help us, if you're a lawyer, know a lawyer, wants to help with a legal malpractice case. And really, we should be writing to our legislative branches and asking them to require that attorneys be appointed to anybody with a legal malpractice case, because obviously, if you had a problem with your lawyer who you've already paid and hired, and they've done a case, you're probably spent, and then you're in pro per, and of course people need lawyers that are in a legal malpractice case. They're usually going to be on their own, right? So really, it should be an automatic, sort of like criminal cases where people mandatory they get to have a lawyer, appointed a lawyer. I think that should be for legal malpractice cases as well. It just goes without saying, right?
Excellent point. I really like that. I'll definitely put that in writing and get that to the bar. So
yeah,
we'll try to make it. In fact, I got a email from Michelle Fiore today, and I'll run that down to her, and we'll get that legislation suggested or proposed as soon as possible. And Michelle she's a New York lady. She's willing to work behind the scenes. She's not. It's hard to argue against that. Let's make some of the pro bono attorneys, have them assigned cases like that. They can say, "Oh, this wasn't my choice. I didn't want this case.
That's exactly.
I've got to take it."
It's exactly right, because I've approached the pro bono. They say they do not do legal malpractice cases. Legal aid do not do legal malpractice cases. And so, yeah, nobody wants to take them, but I think that they should be assigned.
Oh, that's right. I don't have a license.
Well, why don't you take the bar, Stephen? What's up with that? Why don't you take the bar so you can help us?
Starting it again.
Oh, come on.
Somebody call in and get her off this track. I wanted her to talk about the healthcare. I wanted to hear some more about that, because I didn't go through with what happened to me yesterday or this past weekend. She had a very traumatic incident in her life, and I tried to be a good friend and listen and try to offer my take on what was happening, but you're probably going to get hit with this in the next few days on what I went through, and it was rather challenging, folks. someone that you've called your friend for a long time or considered a friend for a long time makes an effort to seriously injure you or kill you, it's not easy to handle. But I came through it, and I'm feeling much better now, and I'm sure Maggie's feeling that. We're all just here for a designated period of time, and every day is a gift. It's a present from the Creator. It's an opportunity to learn some more, and that's kind of what happened in the last few days. Kind of a synopsis of it. Why don't I do that? Well, I've got a few other things on my plate right now. I don't think I've ever talked about it. I'm real big right now on the foreclosure scams.
Yeah.
I own an interest in 4 houses. I have friends in California that are handling these type of cases, friends in Florida that are handling these type of cases. They win every case, folks. What do you think happens in Nevada? I worked with an attorney down and he had an office downtown. He's passed away. He was in his early 70s though. He was of at least average health. I never worked on any of the cases. I know he took the same seminar that I did to learn how to do this. Neil Garfield is his name, the attorney from Florida that came out of retirement to teach lay people and attorneys how to handle these kind of cases. I got the gentleman's name and address from Neil Garfield. You do a search Neil Garfield, he'll come up all over the first page of the search. And I got this gentleman here, a local attorney. He had 30 cases. Take a guess how many he won. All of my friends in California win in every case. All my friends in Florida win in every case. How many cases had this gentleman won of the 30 cases he had in Nevada?
None.
0! She got it. Bing, 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 bing. I told you she's sharp. That's right, folks. None. And he passed away. And I've always felt since that happened, since I read that in the newspaper, that had something to do with him passing. And he knew it was supposed to be better. It was supposed to be different. He had some contacts with some judges that he'd known for years. He was bringing them up to speed on this situation. And now that you've heard the bad news, let's go on to the good news. The good news is that Neil has been asked questions, and other people that know his material have been asked questions regarding how long are these mortgage fraud cases going to take. Well, one of the estimates that I heard, it's somewhere between 60 and 65 years before the last one will be over.
Yeah, didn't they have an independent foreclosure review process, and they're still not done with it? And this was years ago, and they haven't. So they're going house by house. I mean, there's thousands of houses, right? The government. So
definitely, the government paid off the phony mortgages, bought up the phony mortgages, and they're going to ask you to pick them up with your tax payments, folks. It's called austerity. The government bailed out all those banks on phony loans. In Florida, they hired 10,000 convicted felons as loan officers. The investigation by the Attorney General in Florida disclosed. Of course, what did the Attorney General do here? We were real close to getting something done. I was working with an Assistant Attorney General. I had his personal number. I could contact him any day that I wanted at a certain time. And I called him up one day. I had heard an announcement at the top of the news on a talk radio show that I was listening to, and it said that the Attorney General had made a deal with the 6 of the largest banks. Well, folks, you aren't going to like this deal. And the gentleman that I talked to said, we're going in a different direction, Mr. Dempsey. I'm sorry. I've been instructed not to spend any more time on these types of cases. I wish you the best of luck, Really? Oh, you're abandoning me now. I had such hope. He says, but, you know, I got a job and she's in charge. And what was the deal, folks? Hey, big banks that are swindling the people in Nevada, cut the state in for 5 or 10% of what you steal, and we'll offer you immunity. You can steal any houses here. We don't care. That's what happened here, folks. And who is that lady? Well, I'll let you track her down. Maybe she'll is listening. Maybe she'll call in and offer an explanation. I'm sure that she can disagree with my take on that. But I want to bet she doesn't call in. And she's running for political office, folks. And you know, with the vote scam machines, she's probably going to get elected. Man, she made a lot of friends with that deal.
The Attorney General.
The former attorney.
Okay, yeah. I remember when the $30 million we were supposed to get from the bailout. And so we go down and...
You didn't get yours?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because you go down to apply and you find out they just telling people to go back to their banks to apply for another loan modification, where we were trying to pull the banks out of the deal to start with. That's why they had a bailout, you know, because there was a problem with them. And the solution was to go right back to them for another loan modification. And that $30 million just went towards administration fees of hiring all of the people within to set this up under the Attorney General. Probably hired her friends and family and whatnot to set up an infrastructure of basically for an intake for people to apply and basically reapplying for a loan modification. So what I'm telling you is that whole $30 million that we got in Nevada, not one penny actually went to any homeowner. Not one. It all went to jobs. Yeah, I mean, setting up bogus jobs that help nobody for nothing. I mean, if we could have modified the loans with the banks, if they were doing what they were supposed to do, then we wouldn't have needed the 30 million or those jobs. I mean, we would have done that already, right? So that was the whole point of the bailout. And, you know, it's Mickey Mouse, you know.
It's a shell game.
I don't know what happened since then. Do you remember that? The 30 million, that was a few years back.
Sure.
Yeah.
The money never winds up anywhere.
Now, I know the state of Oklahoma fought for a lot more. Those people put their foot down and they got a lot more.
New York did too, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that California and Florida, because people are winning cases there, they didn't accept the payoff.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to rob somebody, you know, it'd be better, to my way of thinking, if the Attorney General didn't make a deal with the thief and take part of what they steal from you in exchange for immunity.
It was a joke. Yeah.
It's a bad joke on you folks, and it's not one that people should be laughing about, because it's not going to get any better if you don't start standing up. And how do you stand up? By publicizing what's going on. And if you lost a house, you were probably not even paying the real party in interest. Now, that's pretty complicated, folks, and I wouldn't want you to try a case like that without a lot of information. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble by writing up stuff that's not true and set bad precedent. But the way these securitization loans were structured, in fact, there's a lot of people that are perhaps listening to the show right now. Are you paying the real party in interest on your mortgage? Because there's a chance you aren't. When you finish paying off this person, another bank or financial institution may say, "Hey, you're behind on your mortgage to us. You're 5 years behind, or we're going to foreclose." Some of them they made. I've heard as high as 10 or 20 copies of the original notes and deeds of trust. And they sold them all. How many people do you know for what you borrowed? And you didn't borrow anything anyway. You borrowed money from a bank account that they set up since they ran the bank. They don't have anything. They don't have $1 in it. They sold the loan at least 7, 8, 10, maybe as many as 20 or 30 times. They were just counting on the investors being so stupid and not being able to afford. Wow, I don't know what those attorneys would cost to handle those. I guarantee it'd be at least $500 or $600 an hour on a class action suit like that. You know, if you got an award of 30 or 40 million, you might get 27 cents as one of the class members. The attorney's fees would eat up all that. I guarantee it. That wouldn't provide you with any remedy whatsoever. It's a funny situation. It's not funny. It's an absolute ripoff. It's funny that the American people would put up with it. That's what. And the reason why it's going to take 60 or 65 years before the last case is done, because it's going to take that long for some people to figure out that they were cheated, or they've been paying the wrong people, and somebody else. You know, in California, a bank foreclosed on a piece of property that they never had a mortgage for. The people got a very good collection attorney, and he proved that they never even had a contract of any sort with this bank, and they were foreclosed and starting eviction proceedings to throw these people out of their house. They didn't even have a mortgage with the company, and the attorney did a hell of a job. He got a good judge. He made a motion for summary judgment. He got it, and he got the judgment against the bank. Well, now how do you collect? They sent the constable or the sheriff out to collect, and they did. The bank says, "Oh, you know, we don't have time for this." And the attorney had some friends. He was no doubt politically connected and had some people that owed him favors. And so he got another judge to sign a execution on the money in the tills, on the desks, on the computers at the desks, you know, and the vice president's office equipment or supplies, everything. They were going to execute on everything, just sell everything for this to satisfy this judgment. Well, that got the bank's attention, and they finally later that day they came through with a check. But not all attorneys are prepared to go to that lengths or know how to handle that. I'd admit that I wouldn't know where to begin on that. I'd call Neil or somebody similar to that. That was a good story though. That was a good outcome. It shows you, you know. And one of the reasons why they want you to enter into a loan modification agreement, one of the main reasons, I saw that right off the top, is because now they've got an original loan and deed of trust. You just modified. They didn't have any interest in your property. And they said, come on down for a loan modification. Now they've got an original loan and deed of trust. You just signed another one. They'd sold that first one. And after they copied, after they made.
I mean, if people agree to do a modification, then
Right.
that gives them a new. I didn't think of that.
Right.
Huh.
No, most people don't think about it. Because you wouldn't think that the first thing they did, my investigator says that first thing they do after they make the copies and decide how many times they're going to sell it is they destroy the original. Now nobody can prove anything. Of course, now the banks came up with a way around that pretty quick. And there was a case that Neil highlighted. It's been, probably a year and a half. It was a federal district court case. I hesitate to name the banks, but there were two large financial institutions. One was a plaintiff and the other one was a defendant. They both made motions for summary judgment based on their original loans and deeds of trust documents. But there were different documents on the same property. And the judge Neil quoted the judge's decision. He says, I don't know why we even have these type of cases. They both got original documents, and I can't tell which one's original and which isn't. One's 2 pages and one's 3 pages, and I don't know which is the original. And you got both attorneys swearing that they've got the original documents. It was called the Battle of the Original Documents. So You got to admit, if this was a fictional novel and you were reading about this, you would say, wow, that can't happen, but this is real. I know, to quote Alex, folks, you're living in bizarro world. There's not too much that you can absolutely say is true. I know that I was speaking to Rolando the other day, and he was putting together a explanation of his column, or explanation in his column regarding the importance of the vote. And I do say it's important, but I hear some of those people say, well, if you don't vote, then you don't deserve a right to complain. No, folks, it's a little more complicated than that. If you vote and you can't verify that your vote is counted, then there's a very good chance you didn't vote. And why would you criticize somebody that already knows that they aren't counting the vote anyway, or is choosing not to vote because they know that there's a high likelihood that the vote's not being counted? I recall, I've been here a lot of years. I recall it's been some time ago. I believe it was the largest percentage-wise state tax increase in the history of our state. And if I remember right, I think it was kind of in the Carter years. And oh man, no, it was tough. Interest rates were up to 23 or 24%, and there were all kinds of foreclosures, and the economy wasn't doing that good. And there wasn't anybody in this state that I knew that said, oh yeah, let's raise the taxes and let the state make some more of our money. You know, people needed the money in their pocket to waste on food and a place to shelter them and their families. There weren't too many people that stepped forward and said, yeah, I'll stay here or take some more. And the polls, there was one gentleman that I knew at that time, or I still know him, he's still alive and kicking. We can verify this, folks, so if you question it, I'll verify it for you. He was big on polls, and this tax increase was going down to resoundingly to defeat. And I was surprised it wasn't a lot higher than that. It was about, if I remember right, 7 to 10%, which is a large percentage. And they like to word it differently to try to influence the results anyway. But it was going soundly down to defeat. I mean, it wasn't even going to be close. It was going to be a landslide. Even the government employees, some of them were voting against it. The people that stood to benefit by increasing state taxes, as far as salary increases and increases in positions and stuff like that. I mean, there were a lot of them that were against it. And it won, folks. It won by 7 to 10%. It wasn't even close. And I can still remember, I've heard this friend of mine, I never told the story until I heard him tell it on the Lou Epton show one time. And I figured, well, if he can say it on the show, then he can't hold me to a expectation of privacy any longer. Because I heard the show, I heard him say it. He said, it would be easier for an individual to get struck by lightning 3 times in one day than for that to have happened. So that sounds like pretty good odds to me. I've never heard anybody getting struck by lightning twice. And I hope I'm not the first. And I know that there probably hasn't. I doubt whether there's been anybody that's gotten struck by 3 times. If you get struck twice, I recommend you go into a sheltered building or something. Don't get struck a 3rd time. But that's the odds he thought it was on. And if we can't count on our vote, if we can't count on the highest law enforcement officers in the state, if we can't count on judges, if we can't count on representation by the legal field, folks, we're in a mess. What do we need to be counting on? I'll tell you what you can count on. You can count on the wake-up call. As long as I'm able, and as long as Rolando will allow this. Now, he may get some heat from time to time, but I got a feeling Rolando can handle heat. That Cuba's experience probably, I'd like to hear him talk about that sometime. I think that's important that we learn some of that. So, folks, when you hear Rolando on the Face the Tribune, please do me a favor, call in, ask him a question about his early life in Cuba and what some of the experiences that he had. Because let's learn from these individuals. There's a limited supply of them. For those of you who haven't heard, I used to work for Irwin Schiff, and I got an email today from his son. I had heard this weekend, and Alex announced it on his show. Irwin has passed away. I believe it was last Thursday or Friday. I hope it was somewhat natural causes. The place where they had transferred him, it was for increased medical care, but it seems like the percentage of people dying with increased medical care increases dramatically at this particular prison. And I know his son was a little concerned. And I was thinking about it today. I think he's still with us. I think people like that start on a mission, they don't always leave when they pass on. They stick around and help. So if you believe that, and you knew her and Shiv, you'd like to get some help, think about it when you go to sleep. See how you feel in the morning. That's the way I usually do those kind of things. But it's not a happy situation for me to report that, but it's going to happen probably to all of us. But I do believe, I don't know if you believe this or not, Maggie, I'd like your input on this. I've heard it said by some people that I respect in the medical field, if you can make it another 20 years, there's a very good chance that you'll probably make it another 100 with the cloning and the reproduction capabilities that they're admitting, and taking into account where they probably are that they aren't admitting. All we have to do, folks, is to get these psychos that make big money loaning money to both sides and starting these phony wars and killing people. All we have to do is get them under control. And then, maybe we got another 100, 120 years to go. I believe that's one of the things the agreements that we made when we came here, is to stay here as long as we're able. And I don't know if I can go another 100 years on this radio station, but I'll try. Have you had any interest in investigating life extension principles of any sort, Maggie?
Well, I mean, of course, there's a lot we can do with lifestyle, and like you say, maybe more technology will be developed, and you got to just keep living and keep putting forth the things that we know to do, anti-aging, and the quantum biofeedback, which I do, helps to at least slow down the aging process. I don't know if we can make it come to a complete stop, but we can work to stabilize ourselves and do the best we can, and then you never know, it might surprise you. You'll be living well over 100 before you know it.
Why don't you describe how that, you made reference to it again, the biofeedback technique. How is that done? What could people that contact you, what could they expect to see? What could they expect to experience? What's it like? Tell us about that trip.
Well, I hook people up to the device. It's very subtle. It deals with electromagnetic energy. I described before, we put the straps around your head and wrists and ankles. It connects to my computer. There's a box. In 3 minutes, it reads over 10,000 frequencies. And there's programs to send frequencies back to balance your energy. So it's a balancing thing. It kind of balances your energy and helps, bring anything that's out of balance back into balance so that you can heal and begin to start a healing process. A lot of the times when we, balance our emotions and get something kind of become more grounded and mentally stable, it enables our physical issues to begin to heal as well. So, the quantum, it works on multiple levels all at the same time. I think that's why it's called quantum. And, it's amazing. Got to try it. Yeah.
Well, I'm in. You'll be hearing more about it, folks, and I'll tell you about my experience. I hope. Because I had an individual who put me in touch with a gentleman similar to that, and I brought him a couple customers, and he was waiting for an appointment to show up, and he ran me on that. It sounds similar to that. I'll report how closely related they were. This particular one, it showed you important points depending on where he went in the body. It showed what I guess the lowest category was non-functioning, then the below average, average, above average, and peak efficiency. And it was pretty interesting to see areas of your body, and he punched a button and it went around and like probably what you were making reference to, sent frequency to that area of the body, and you could see some of the points actually improving with the procedure that he was using. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's going on in the medical field. There's no question about that. I think that probably it's what's happening with people with cell phones is probably causing some innovative, creative doctors to say, well, what if I turn that around and make it good for the body instead of hazardous? I've heard that said a lot about the atomic energy regarding the atomic bomb. You have,
phone call.
Are we getting a call?
Maybe.
Maybe it's somebody that knows something about the atomic energy. We'll see. Good afternoon, you're on the air.
This is an important message. Focus receivable.
I was afraid of that.
Telemarketing.
Another important message. It's a recording, folks. Somebody's trying to sell something. But we're hoping in the days ahead that we're going to get rid of most of those. But they're pretty incessant. And I think the number was formerly somebody that had collection problems, because that could be it. The important announcement is that they aren't being paid. It's not that important to me, folks, because I wasn't involved in that. But thanks for the call anyway, recording. And thanks for being here, folks. And thanks to Maggie for being here. We're rapidly approaching the end of the show. I'm glad to hear that I didn't really understand how closely related your procedure was to one that I've already experienced. I know that I listened to a program on KLAV it's probably been about a year ago. And it was on post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of times that stuff comes up in a war conflict situation. But I didn't really know how far it extended to. And when I met a Florida doctor regarding I was out at the life extension seminar excuse me, not the Palazzo, the Venetian. And it was a really interesting seminar. And I was walking around, it was the last day, and some of them were already closed up, and a lot of them were closing up. And I think I was the last individual who had an opportunity to use this technique of some kind. It was sunglasses colored sunglasses, and there were lights in two on the top and two on the bottom, and they flashed at intermittent flashing, and you watched the computer program at the time, and it was some type of a brain evaluation technique. I've got some material on it because I was really interested in it. They admitted that sometimes it took people 3 or 4 treatments before they started noticing something, and I really felt like I felt different halfway through the first one. So I took that as an indication that I probably, after hearing that guy talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, I decided to check into that as I was doing the test. And then the lady who owned the company had to get packed up, and she turned me over to a doctor from Florida, and he started asking me, well, he had a clinic in Florida, and he says, well, how do you feel about it? And I said, it sounded like I really felt like it would do me some good. And he says, have you had any traumatic experience? And I said, yeah, I was in a car wreck. The wreck actually wasn't that serious, but I got an infection, staph infection. Everybody that was in the car got it. And I wound up aggravating a pre-existing congenital condition where your spinal fluid is made inside your brain. And I took off my hat and I showed him. I said, yeah, I said I had some pretty serious surgery. And he says, oh my gosh, what happened? And I said, well, I was out, but it's my understanding they drilled 4 holes in my skull and took a hammer and a chisel and took off a part of my skull and went inside and straightened things out. I didn't really feel they did a brain transplant. I don't think they can do that yet. But I did feel different, and it did change my life. And he says, oh my gosh, did you think you were not going to be changed by that? And that's exactly the way he said it, with a lot of emotion. And I said, all you know is what you feel. And you can't compare how you would feel if that hadn't happened, because it did. And so I would encourage anybody that thinks that they might have some post-traumatic stress disorder to get it checked out. I know an excellent place to do that, and they really helped me. And I'm pretty sure that Maggie's procedure will help you also.
Yes.
You can't be afraid to try something new. It's like I told that lady today. She has all these things that are wrong with her. I told her, Michelle, I said, as far as I'm concerned, there's a good chance it's all those drugs you're taking. You aren't sick, or you don't have something wrong because of a shortage of drugs. And she says, well, I believe that, but it's a tough situation to be in. You got a guy that's standing there in front of you trying to scare you into doing something, and he's got on a white coat, and he's got a bunch of degrees on the wall. But looks like we're about to close. One thing, do you have any final comment, or anything that you'd like to share?
No, but if anybody's listening that can help us, we're going to solve the world's problems here with Stephen on a wake-up call. If you have any ideas, call in. Let us know what your thoughts are.
Well, I know we're going to have a lot of people listening to the archived versions of these in the days ahead. Mm-hmm. So that's part of what the motive is doing these shows now. And we've got some plans in the days ahead. Certainly the town hall meetings is going to be a very important part. I know I've spoken to a couple of businesses that I want to provide them. When I have the operators of those businesses on, they already have a group, so I've explained to them that you need to let your group know that you're going to be on the air, so that you can help me, and we'll put the information out, anything that I believe is important. I'd like to close with the speech from well-known, I've forgotten his name, but he was well recognized
Clark.
in the medical field
Oh.
as a doctor of esteemed prominence. And it was a speech that he gave to the Harvard graduating class. He apologized to the graduating class. He said, at least half of what we taught you here isn't correct. At least half of what they were teaching at the Harvard Medical School, he said, wasn't correct. And the problem is, we don't know which half. So think about that for a while. And as you contemplate whether or not you ought to try something different and see how it makes you feel. So I would suggest that you go to the website where my mentor's son operates the International Academy of Lymphology. It's at www.speedhealing, SPEED, healing, HEALING.com. Request the home study program. You give him your email, he'll send you it's either 5 or 7 days and an introduction, and you'll learn something, I promise you. Okay, so that's it for this edition of the Wake Up Call. Tune in tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Travel safely. Bye.
Bye.